Welcome back, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. It's time for an episode of Treknicity Live. I haven't done one of these for a while. I'm your host, Lars to Scenza, and this is the show where I talk about everything to do with Star Trek. In this episode, we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 2, or where I think it is right now and my thoughts on it, because, I've been pretty kind of on the fence a little bit about Star Trek Discovery since it first premiered in 2017. And I think it's time now that I addressed it properly. And now that I've had a chance to really get sunk into the entire series, to let you know what I think about it and, where I think it's going to go. So to start off, I want to talk about the change, the biggest change that happened in Star Trek Discovery from season 1 to season 2. And that was, every season of every major Star Trek series, except maybe the first one, had a pretty big overarching story. Like there was something that was about the entire season, even though they may have peppered in there or sprinkled in there little episodes of things that didn't necessarily have anything that contributed to the overarching story for that season. In the first season of Star Trek Discovery, it was, of course, the introduction of the series, and on top of it, it was the Klingon War that took place for that first year that we saw the series. The second season has brought in a little bit more mysterious plot regarding something called the Red Angel. It's a mysterious figure that's been seen or at least alluded to in trailers and teasers, and also in episodes 1 and 2 of season 2 so far. As far as the change in story, I'm glad they got away from the Klingon War. I'm glad they wrapped that up in season 1 because that was became very tired. Since this is supposed to be in the Prime universe, they're trying to be canon with it. There were just so many things that just didn't gel with me regarding season 1. So the fact that they wrapped all that up and moved on to a new story in season 2, much better. In this one, like I said, they're talking about these mysterious red bursts that have been charted and picked up throughout the galaxy, and now they're kind of off and going. Really cool bit there at the end of season 1, and I'll give you the warning right now. Spoiler alert! At the end of the episode, the season finale for season 1, we get to see good old Constitution class USS Enterprise, and we find out that it is captained, of course, by Christopher Pike, and that's where they left it off. So they picked that back up right with the new season, and they start off with the story. One thing is really cool about this is that so far, even though I'm not a huge fan of the series, I am very praising of the fact that they have made it feel more like Star Trek. They brought more of that adventure, that spirit of we're off to explore things, to explore the unknown, to come up and find what hasn't been found yet, and literally going into the final frontier. It's in the background of this big story about the red bursts and the Red Angel and things like that, but still it's one of the things that I feel that makes it a good series, or it's starting to make it a better series anyways. With Star Trek, for me, one thing that has always been very important is that it made you feel inclusive. It made you feel like you would belong, or you had a place or a part, or something, some part of you belonged in this universe. And when they bring in the character of Christopher Pike in this one, I felt like they shifted it from the let's make Star Trek so edgy and dark to the all right, we're gonna go out there and kick some ass. And that has been a big improvement for me. Anson Mount as Christopher Pike Now, I'd never seen, or at least I don't remember seeing Anson Mount in anything prior to Discovery. But of course, he's been in plenty of things. He doesn't make you feel stupid. He doesn't make you feel like, oh, I'm going to basically crowbar my way into the role that Jeffrey Hunter started in the Apollo at the Cage. He makes you feel like, okay, I'm going to step into these shoes and I'm going to be as respectful to them as possible. He is not, he's not arrogant. He is, in a way, one thing I would say about Jeffrey Hunter's portrayal of Christopher Pike is that because it was the 60s, men were still very chauvinistic, very misogynistic in many ways. So the fact is he played me man, ugh, me man, you woman, even though he did have a respect for his first officer, number one, you could still sense there was very much that 60s social vibe to it. With Anson Mount, it's different. I mean, his version of Pike isn't the Bruce Greenwood's version of Pike from the Kelvin universe movies, where it's the I expect the best of you, or I expect better of you, blah 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 blah, and trying to give you the pep talk. No, this is, I want to know who you are, I want to know what you do, and I want you to come along and be a part of this ride for us, because that's what Star Trek is all about. And I think it is very, very faithful to the character of Christopher Pike. I'm interested to see how he sort of develops it throughout the season, to see if he carries it on beyond season 2. That'll be interesting as well. But right now, there is definitely a good dichotomy between the characters of Pike and Michael Burnham. And I'll talk about Michael Burnham and another character that I feel sort of border on the Mary Sue edge of things, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But again, in the episode Brother, which is the season premiere for season 2, his character is very much the take charge, but don't be a dick about it. Okay, there are leaders, and then there are not leaders. There are people who used to say there are different. There are leaders and there are bosses. He's very much a leader, and you'll see if you haven't watched these already, and you do watch them, you'll see so far the character is a pretty good homage to, or at least faithful representation of the character of Christopher Pike so far. It's going to be weird to see how they run that whole thing, and whether or not, because back in the original series episode of the Menagerie, we see that Pike is all gimped up in a wheelchair after being exposed to a near lethal amount of delta rays from an old J-class training cruiser. So, moving forward a little bit, one other aspect of this season so far that we've seen is that Michael Burnham is searching for her adoptive brother Spock. Now, when the series was first mentioned, they said to us that Spock would not appear in this series. They were going to have Sarek, maybe Amanda, but no Spock. And I thought, okay. I'm like, well, I guess we're not going to see the Enterprise then, are we? Because, Spock on Pike's Enterprise, well established. However, they must have switched gears and said, "Screw it, we're going to do it. We're going to bring a character in. He's loved. We're going to explore that relationship between Spock and Sarek and Amanda and Michael Burnham." I'm kind of curious just to see if they're going to mention Cybok at any point. So that'll be funny. So with Spock being played by a very talented actor by the name of Ethan Peck, so far I'm interested. They've got me interested. I want to see where it goes. I'm not all that thrilled though at them bringing Spock into the series right now, especially from what we've seen. It looks more like he's like hipster Spock. I just, he's got the beard going on. He's I'm like, okay. And they play a lot, right? So far, they've played a lot on his human half. They're like, oh, well, he's half human, so he's feeling these emotions. I'm like, yeah, but you know, Spock, Spock has been like ever since, like, I mean, in every iteration, other than little bitty Spock, we have seen him be, you know, the textbook Vulcan, emotionless unless he's being controlled by some other outside influence or something like that. Otherwise, he has been, I am Spock and I am bam, I am like a robot Vulcan. So the fact that they kind of got this emo hipster Spock thing going on, I'm not too sure about that. But I won't judge it fully until I've seen it, in which at this point there's been so much talk about when Spock is actually going to appear in the series. And so far there's no guarantee, there's no definite as to when we're actually going to see his appearance. But again, as I understand it, he is linked to the Red Angel appearances in this season, so I'm sure we'll see quite a bit of him at some point in the not too distant future. Speaking of hipster Spock and how I feel like they have kind of turned away from the traditional portrayal of the character, my biggest critique or criticism of this entire series so far is the fact that because it is a CBS series, it feels like a CBS series. It feels like every other single CBS series. And that means you could literally take plot elements out of any other CBS drama, whether it be NCIS, CSI, whatever, and you could plunk it into Star Trek Discovery, and somehow they would make it work for the show. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I don't particularly like it myself because it feels kind of cookie cutter. The writers are great. I mean, some of the stories have been fantastic. The short Trek series, including the episodes for me, Calypso, and the one with Harry Mudd, the escape artist, were primo. Loved it. Just absolutely loved how they did them. I mean, they felt more like Star Trek than anything else, that I have seen in a long time, including the Kelvin movies, which anybody knows me knows how much I don't like them. That being said, this series seems to have some characters I would class as Mary Sue's. Mary Sue characters are, by definition, those who are, they're super powered yet inherently flawed, and you're just like, okay, what the literal F is going on here, okay? And those characters in particular for me have been Michael Burnham and I know this is going to be an unpopular one here, but Anson Tilly. And, what can I say? Okay, well, with Michael Burnham, first of all, she has the distinguished, she has the pleasure, if you like, of being the first character or the first officer in Starfleet ever tried and convicted of mutiny. Despite the fact that in an episode of the original series, Spock clearly says there have been no mutineers in the history of Starfleet. So maybe the fact, and again, spoiler alert, maybe the fact that she got a pardon at the end of season 1 counts towards the official record that there have been no mutineers in Starfleet. However, again, I think Sonequa Martin Green is a fantastic actress. I loved her in The Walking Dead. It just feels like she's stiff. I feel like she is, I am a pseudo-Vulcan, and I am Michael Burnham. I was raised by Vulcans. What? Come on. There just seems like there's so much more depth to this that we could have with this character. She does portray, an interesting side of the character, but I just feel like I am inherently flawed, but I am super awesome cool. And to me, that has Mary Sue stamped all over it. The other one, Anson Tilly. Mary Wiseman, I just feel like they're messing with me on this one because she feels like she's got so much more depth to her. You know, she's kind of that, I think I made the mention when I was at a viewing party for the premiere, and we were sitting around, and I remember saying something along like, "This is the female Reginald Barclay from TNG." It feels like it like all day long. She just is nervous. I swear to God, she would jump 3 feet if somebody caught a fart next to her. And then, as we roll into season 2, she starts to try to find her own, and that's good. In that of itself, that's good. But she's just so twitchy and anxious, and but she's like this, she's so full of this, I have to be important, I have to be accomplished, and I have to be super smart, and all this. And again, watching her in in episode 1, in the episode Brother, when she kind of does this thing with a bit of asteroid, it reminded me from Abrams' Trek when they're having trouble with the transporter, and Chekhov gets up from his post without asking anything, runs to the transfer room, says, I can do this, get out of my way. He's running gangbusters through the corridors, to the transporter room. And I'm thinking, this is exactly, she's like, she gets out of her bio bed, and she's like, that's in the second episode, but she gets out, from where she's at, she runs to engineering and the shuttle bay, and she does this thing. She's like, and it's like, I know this is going to work because blah, 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 and techno babble out the yin yang, and voila, it works, and I'm thinking, wow. This is all kinds of stupid written all over it. I mean, I like where the overall story is developing. It is good. And to be honest with you, and I didn't like the character Stamets for the first season. I just felt like he was a sanctimonious asshole. But in season 2, wow, much better, much more depth to the character. Actually feel his loss, his pain, his everything. And not a Mary Sue, definitely not he's the I have been damaged, and I am acting like somebody who has been damaged, and he's not pretending to be more than he is. He's just, he's not trying to be something he's not. So, very different characters. Again, Michael Burnham does the whole, I'm inherently flawed, but I'm super awesome. And Tilly is the no, I can't really go with that. It just drives me nuts. So, with that being said, however, the cool thing is that we have 2 episodes in the can. Another one is going to come out on Thursday, and I'm curious to see how it goes. So let's kind of jump into that a little bit as we wind out this episode today. I want to start with the season premiere called Brother. We see the Discovery has been contacted by the Enterprise. They get Captain Pike come over. He brings over a couple of officers with them, an engineer and a science officer who's not Spock. And they basically get these orders. They got to go chasing after these red bursts all over the galaxy, and they manage to find one. So they take off towards it, get there, and of course, like it happened in every time Pike was on the bridge, or in the Abrams-verse movies, when they pull out of war, bam, they pull up into this giant cloud of debris. In this case, it's an asteroid being ripped to shreds. So they figure out, okay, they got to go check it out. They do this whole thing where they check out the asteroid. They find that there is a Starfleet ship, a hospital ship, that has crash landed on the surface of the asteroid, and they need to go down there and find somebody or find whoever might be there still alive, because Starfleet's very much the American military style, like the no man left behind ideology. And yeah, so they do their whole thing. They have a scene that is very reminiscent of the whole flying through debris and whatnot in Star Trek Into Darkness, when Khan and Kirk are making their way to the Vengeance. Well, they have these sort of lander things that they're manually piloting through the debris to get down to the ship. And I swear to God, there is a couple of Star Wars elements there, including what I swear is the sound of a TIE fighter at some point. So they get, and they go down this thing. They go down to the ship. They get in there. They figure out that it's still powered. There's somebody on the ship. She's an engineer who's been keeping people alive after the escape pods took off. That engineer, who is Jet Reno, played by the hilarious Tig Notaro. In fact, that was my favorite part of the entire episode. Her bit there with the very deadpan, dry humor, just fantastic. So she's so matter of fact, and it's like, wow, okay, if she's in this show, this might actually be really cool. But I don't know whether we're going to see her again or not, because I didn't see her in episode 2, which is New Eden. So overall impressions of the episode, it's sort of this, it's okay, it's decent. I mean, it's a good starter. Again, Pike really sells the character in this one, and it made you feel like, yes, okay, we're back into a Star Trek series, no doubt about it. From there, they go on to the let's go find Spock, because Pike tells Michael Burnham that Spock left the Enterprise on personal leave after the war, blah, 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 blah. So she's like, okay, we go find him, and off they go. So we roll into episode 2, which is New Eden. They're cruising along, again, chasing after these bursts, and they find out that there's a signal that's like in the beta quadrant that they can somehow detect. But of course, they realize the beta quadrant is so far away for these ships that it'll take forever to get there. So, yeah, I mean, so like, and they go, okay, we're gonna use the spore drive. I'm like, oh, the spore drive? Come on, I thought we got rid of that in season 1. Okay, it was kind of a novel concept to start with, but we need to get rid of this stupid thing, because it literally never shows up anywhere else in Star Trek ever. So, but they use it. Okay, they use it to get to where they're going. They find a planet that is basically inhabited by the descendants of 21st century Earth. Somehow they got out here. They were supposedly brought by this Red Angel thing, and when they go down to check the planet, of course, before they go down, they're all like, hey, look, these are the pre-warp civilizations. So General Order 1, which is the prime directive, is in effect. And they're like, wait, they're humans. Like, yeah, but dumbass, they have no idea what warp drive is. They have no idea what any of this 23rd century technology is. I mean, they have no idea. In fact, when they get down there, they find that they have no electricity. And the reason they have no electricity is because they can't figure out how to fix the thing when it broke. So they go down there, they meet these people, they find that, in order for everybody to survive, they had to combine all the religions, and they basically made this one massive super group religion that everybody has to follow. So I'm gonna just talk in real broad sense, because I didn't really like the episode all that much. I liked it from the standpoint. I liked the elements of it, that they brought in these ancient Earthlings. They really, started to take the steps towards filling out some of the things we didn't see or have never seen, even in the movies. Like in Star Trek First Contact, they talked about, the whole thing of going, of Earth after the Third World War and stuff like that. However, where it falls down is that these people are idiots, straight up idiots. They just can't seem to. They've shunned technology and like, why? So, long story short, the Discovery crew, while the landing party is down there, discover that. Oh yeah, by the way, it's discovered by Tilly that there is radioactive material in the planetary rings that's going to end up going down and hitting them and killing them all on the planet. So they have to figure out a way to get it all mopped up and away from them so they don't die from it. Yay. What I do like about this whole thing is that there's one character who is like, my whole family were scientists, and I don't necessarily follow religion. I follow the path of science. Cool. Okay. You have an opposing opinion, and it was cool that he was very dedicated to what he was, talking about and what he believed. And it was good that they actually worked, they took religion and they were able to mesh it together in such a way that it worked for most of them. However, okay, and this is a big spoiler alert, so don't yell at me if you haven't seen it yet, because at this point, whatever, you're listening to me anyway. So there's a part where the landing party goes back up to the ship, and Michael Burnham basically gives Pike the speech, we should help them because they're our ancestors, and they should be able to see Earth and all that stuff, and this one time it's okay to break the Prime Directive because they're humans, and I would have thought like Pike would have like, look, and because initially he took the stance of, I don't care, okay, there is no good reason to interfere with the development of these people, okay, as far as they're concerned, there is no such thing as warp drive transporters, blah 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 blah. However, she somehow manages to strong arm him, browbeat him into doing it. So Pike breaks the Prime Directive, beams down to this guy's basement, gives him a power cell that will last for years and years and years, so that he can put the lights back on. And in exchange, the guy gives him a helmet, a soldier's helmet that has a camera that recorded this so-called Red Angel event. So they thought, well, we're trying to deal with this whole thing that's gonna wipe out the universe and everything, so it's okay to break the Prime Directive. No, I thought that was kind of dumb. There are certain cases where okay, maybe it is okay to break the Prime Directive in this series, but this just didn't feel like one of them. So at the end of the episode, it just felt like I was like oh God, I just chewed a raw aspirin, and no, not a terrible episode, but I'm hoping that they get better. I'm really, because I've seen better from this crew, and I'm hoping that they basically do the whole thing where we can kind of dial back on this one. But of course, a lot of these episodes have already been filmed, so who knows at this point. We'll see. In my final thoughts on the series so far, okay, if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it a B+. Okay, if I had to give it the old Spock sign, I'd give it 3.5 of these. But overall, I'll be looking forward. I will watch the series. I'll continue to watch it. I will critique it, and I'll come back here on Treknicity, maybe even Treknicity Live, and do my thoughts on that episode or review of the episode. I may also bring in more reviews. My fellow Redshirt Geek Patrick has decided he wants to continue on doing some reviews, so we may do. In fact, we've been talking about doing a non-specific Star Trek movie review. In particular, a Star Trek homage or parody, which was Galaxy Quest, my favorite sci-fi movies. So yeah, we'll definitely be back more for it. In the meantime, This has been Treknicity Live. I've been your host, Lars Scenza. Thank you for joining me here live. And as always, here on Treknicity, I welcome you to rock out with your Spock out. Goodbye, folks. See you next time.